This is exciting. It's a real revenue.
I'm really excited for
At this
this.
point.
Good afternoon, folks. We're glad you are here. We are here to hear from Mr. Brody Coolidge and celebrate his journey to become a teacher candidate. He will have 30 minutes to deliver his final presentation and answer the 3 questions that you'll see on the sides of the room. Who does he aspire to be as a teacher? What opportunities has he been presented with to become a better teacher? And how's he going to maximize his student teaching internship next spring? Brody, I'll remind you that we will open up for questions and answers at the end. Jess will help us translate those questions from the online audience. If you would be so kind as to repeat those questions when those questions are asked so that they can hear that loud and proud. You will have 30 minutes and they start now. They're all yours.
All right, cool. So welcome everybody to my final presentation. I'm glad that I have a decent crowd out here. And if you know me, I don't mind standing in front of people and talking about myself for 20 to 30 minutes. So that's what we're going to do today. And I'm going to be answering these 3 questions just as Dr. Kerr mentioned. So first, I want to start out by acknowledging my cohort and thanking all of my cohort members. They've been a great group to work with, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them again at the end, but they're really my rock and foundation that helped me get to this point. So let's start with what type of educator I aspire to be. I'm going to mention the 3-circle model a lot in my presentation, and there is a 3-circle model of Ag Ed, which I will get to, but my teaching philosophy is also based around a 3-circle model. I believe that a good educator should be enthusiastic, relatable, and devoted. So what does this mean? Well, enthusiasm, I believe, is one of the most important pieces to being a good educator. I'm sure we've all walked into those classrooms where the teacher stands up and goes, "Good morning, class. Today we're going to talk about this." No one likes going into those classes. You want to see your teacher be enthusiastic and enjoy the subject that they're teaching. Because if they're not enjoying the subject that they're teaching, why should you enjoy learning and why should you put forth your best effort? Relatable is my next topic, and that also sort of plays in with enthusiasm. So enthusiasm is more enthusiastic about the topics that you're teaching, whereas relatable and being able to relate to your students is a way to get students engaged and to realize that you are a person just like them. If a student is comfortable in the classroom and can relate to the teacher, I believe that they are going to be able to have a better education. And then lastly, devoted. I believe that the teacher should be devoted to their craft, always seeking to grow and being devoted to engage in other learning and experiences to be able to grow as an educator, which I will also touch on later. So that is the 3-circle model. I believe these are 3 of the most important characteristics for myself, and altogether they make up a solid rock star ag teacher. Classroom management plan. It's a school, not a prison. So we have a couple posters up here that I've made, and if you also know me, I'm the type of person who doesn't really necessarily like a lot of rules. I'm kind of go with the flow. Sit down, do your work. Let's come in. Let's do the lesson. But in making these and, in my observations, I realized that you do need structure. And these posters are going to be a great way to help keep structure within my classroom. So first we have classroom procedures. The first procedure is to enter your entrance into the classroom, walk in, find your seat, and take out your class materials and get prepared for class. That's the very first thing you should do, is to get in the mood, put all your pencils out, put all your notebooks out, whatever you need to get ready for class. Number 2 would then be bell work. This helps you stay focused while everyone else is coming in. It gets your mind thinking about some of the content that we'll be going over today. Next, we have stay focused. This is something that you'll be doing throughout the class as we talk about information. You need to be focused on the task at hand. Don't be distracted by something like a phone or looking out the window. And lastly is review. Wait for the instructor to dismiss you after final reflections or comments. So it's really easy to pack up your bags as the professor or instructor is going over the review of the day, but it's important, again, to stay focused and listen to that review. Along with the classroom procedures, I also have some expectations in my classroom. And there is only one rule in my classroom, and that would be, well, it's a 3-part rule. It would be respect yourself, your peers, and the school. I believe respect is super important, and if we all have that respect, we're going to be able to follow the rest of the expectations and not get in trouble as often. The expectations I have listed out are to stay positive, have a growth mindset, stay focused, give 100% effort, and work together. And this also kind of ties in a little bit to the classroom procedures. And I believe that if all of my students follow these expectations, then we'll have no problems and that the class will run smoothly and that we will all be able to enjoy our experience in the classroom. Unfortunately, this will not always hold true. There will always be a few instances where consequences will have to come out. And as much as we don't like them, we will have to acknowledge them. So first, I would start off with a verbal warning, just say, hey, put your phone away, or you're being a little disrespectful, you were unsafe in the lab, something like that, just a verbal warning. If that verbal warning initially does not work, I can have a one-on-one meeting with that student after class to go a little more deeper into the subject and find out what's wrong. If that doesn't work, we can always call home to discuss with the parent. Getting the parent involved helps bring in another adult into the situation, someone that they may look up to or respect more. And then last but not least, hopefully it doesn't have to come to this, but if need be, there's always the office/principal write-up, and then that would be taken into the school administration's hands on what their procedures and consequences look like. So now we'll talk a little bit about my model program curriculum. This is something that I am very passionate about and what I believe a complete ag ed program should look like. So at the bottom, again, I have the 3-circle model, which involves classroom instruction, FFA, and SAE. And we'll touch on that again later, but the brief overview is going back to the previous model that I had on teacher characteristics. These 3 things all work together to create the total ag ed program. Moving up the structure, we have the pillars of the total agricultural sciences program. These 4 main courses would be the 4 main courses that students can take throughout their time in a high school ag program. So the first class would be a general agriculture class. Some of the units we'd be going over here would be Intro to Agriculture, Agricultural Careers, Food Security and Food Science, Environmental Impact of Ag Literacy. This is a very broad general course to get students interested in agriculture, but not only that, we're able to cover some topics that I wouldn't necessarily cover in the other classes. For example, food security and ag literacy is something that you can dive into and it will only be available within that class for students to take, and hopefully it will get them more interested in learning some of the other topics. The other 3 topics can be taken at any time. There's no order that the student would have to take them, but this would be plant science/horticulture, animal science, and natural resource management. And you can see some of the units that would be listed underneath those courses. We would have intro units to all of those, as well as some more in-depth things like plant propagation, beef, swine, poultry, and forestry, one of my favorite topics for natural resource management. Additionally, if a student wanted to focus on one of these topics, so let's say a student takes general ag their freshman year, they take plant science sophomore year, then they try animal science their junior year, but they're not really interested in natural resource management. They're more of a biology, working with plants and animals, that type of thing. They don't really want to go into the woods. They have the option to take an animal science or plant science 2 course. This would be a more advanced course where we dive into more serious topics and get more of a college prep atmosphere and course material going into those units or going into those courses. So again, these are the 4 main courses. A student could take all 4, or they could take a secondary course for plant science, animal science, and natural resource management. Next, another 3-circle model. I told you to be reoccurring in today's presentation, and this is all about FFA and SAE integration. So again, we've been talking about classroom instruction, which is a major component of the 3-circle model, and it's really what it is found its foundation is on. If you don't have classroom instruction, you can't have FFA and SAE. However, FFA and SAE are what make the total ag ed program. So for FFA, I plan on having FFA Fridays where we talk about CEs, public speaking, and leadership. This is a great way to kind of take a step back from the rest of the course content and to get involved in FFA, which is an amazing organization that all the students should be involved in, and students will be expected to at least participate in the FFA Fridays. Next is SAE, which stands for Supervised Agricultural Experience. This experience is something that happens mostly outside of the classroom, although there are certain different types of SAEs that you could do in the classroom. But the SAE experience is something that students do on their own, and they have a records book that keeps records of their goals, their finances, if they have those, and what their progress has been in that experience. This can range from anything to beef entrepreneurship to working as a placement. This could be a research project on a topic you're interested in. There's a lot of different SAE projects out there, and they're all put in to the AET, which is a website that helps keep track of all your experiences. It's an online marketplace. Additionally, I would request that all students have 10 hours per semester, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a lot. That could be like an hour a week. And so every student will be required to have an SAE project and at least put some effort forward into that. And SAE visits are also another option for me to go out into the field and see these student projects and maybe give them some advice and keep up to date with their projects. Next, we have our comprehensive lab integration plan. So I believe that for a lab integration plan, students should have purposeful projects. Excuse me. Students decide the projects and they should be realistic. So my example project here that I created is a wooden toolbox / holder. It's got 4 compartments here. You can hold multiple things, and it's not necessarily a toolbox, although that is kind of the design. But this would be a really simple, easy project for students to complete if I was in an AgMech related course. Again, going back to the curriculum, AgMech is not necessarily my forte, but I'm going to be trying that in the spring. So if I were in an AgMech program, this would be an awesome woodshop project if students wanted to make something that is realistic and purposeful. Now, community is something that is very important to a total ag ed program, and it's something that I also take pride in working with the community and the students. So, excuse me, I have 3 bullet points listed about the community. You need to know your community, you need to show your community, and you need to use your community. So the students should be able to know about their community, know what products are being made in the community, what issues are facing the community related to agriculture. It's important to teach these students about your community, and then you'll be able to show your community what you've been doing, get the community involved. Once the students learn about their community, you will then show the community what you're doing to hopefully get the community support. And then eventually you will use your community and you'll be able to work together. I think that the Ag Ed program and the community kind of go hand in hand, and that the community is an amazing and important part of the total Ag Ed program. One of my community-based instructions that I'll be doing is the food security unit that I'll be teaching in the spring. This is an awesome community-based unit because it shows students that food security is an issue, not just globally or in other countries, but even in their own backyard within their community. Students are going to be creating a food security management plan and then potentially implementing that food security management plan into their community. Now, we need to get students in the program. If we don't have students, you don't have a program. So for program recruitment, I came up with this cool 3-step process called bait, hook, and reel. So first, you need to bait the students with food, preferably. Everyone knows food is a great way to get students to come into meetings and check something out, but you need to have fun and engaging activities that get students to at least look your way, look towards FFA and the ag program, and at least get them to think, well, that could be a cool thing. Let's go check that out. Next, you need to hook them. You need to hook them with amazing experiences on top of the fun little activities with food. Things like FFA conferences, CDEs, fun labs, etc. This is something that will get the students hooked and make them want to come back for more. They might go to a meeting with food, have some pizza, have a good time and laugh with friends. But when you tell them there's an awesome conference that takes place in February, that's going to be a great way to get students to come back and potentially join FFA and join one of your classes. And then lastly, it would be REAL, which is real world impact and skills. So on top of the fun and exciting experiences, some students are looking for more professional development and ways to grow. And this would be really the seal, the real, the seal, all put together in a nice, neat bow. Not only do you get to have fun, but you also get to build real world experiences and grow as a leader. We are not just ag ed. So there's been multiple courses that I have taken throughout my time at Penn State that I have enjoyed and that I have found very beneficial to my development as an ag teacher. One of those would be English 15. Now, English 15 is just a gen ed. It's something that we all have to take. We all have to take those English courses. But English 15 at Altoona with my professor, Ryan George, was an amazing experience. It wasn't just English. It was more about reading and knowledge and using English as a gateway to learn more about the world and to open your mind to new ideas. And it really helped change my perspective on reading. I read a little bit more now than I used to. It was a great way to learn how to write. And even though the course was stressful sometimes, it's a great way to open my mind to sort of the bigger picture of knowledge in the world. Not a typical English class, it's very awesome. InTag 297 is a course that I just completed this semester, and this course is kind of what inspired me to create that food security unit. Food security is something that I knew about and I cared about a little bit, but it wasn't until I took this course that I sort of realized the scope and of food security and the difference between food security and hunger and how we can impact and help change food security within our community. And then lastly, AmSite 201. I grew up working on my grandparents' dairy farm, and I loved getting to dive further into more animal science topics, and this will be a great course. The note packet that I have from that course will be an amazing resource that I will be using throughout my student teaching experience and probably well into my teaching career. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about what I have done to better myself as an educator. So some of the certifications that I have are the Safe Tractor certification. I'm able to give students safe tractor test to be certified to operate tractor, students who are under the age of 16. I also just recently got certified to be a Flipgrid educator. One of the things that we did this semester was tool time with Carson, tool time with the top, and that was really awesome. He shared a lot of great tools that we can use in our classroom, and Flipgrid is really awesome because it allows students to voice their opinions in a place that's not necessarily in front of everybody. It's a video discussion tool where students can share videos and ideas, and it's really awesome. I just got certified. I'm looking forward to using that. And the certification that I plan on getting in the near future is WILD Cert. This is a certification that would go hand in hand with a natural resource management class, and it is something that I look forward to completing in the future. Now we'll talk a little bit more about some professional development activities. So the PAAE and NAA conference, which is the National Association of Agricultural Educators and Pennsylvania Association, and that's a picture from the recent trip that we took to New Orleans as a cohort. This trip was an amazing experience and something that I wasn't necessarily looking forward to begin with, partially because I don't want to fly, and partially because I thought, well, it's just going to be a couple boring workshops. I'm not going to get a lot out of it, whatever. I went in with a negative attitude, and I came out with a whole different perspective. It was an amazing opportunity to get to meet educators from across the country, share new ideas, and learn what it means to truly be a master educator. The inquiry-based learning was some of the workshops that we did at NAA conference. This is a method of teaching that allows students to sort of take the reins and lead their own learning and figure out what they want to do and solve problems rather than just having a teacher stand up in front of the podium and lecture. And student leadership training was a professional development event that I did my sophomore year at Penn State Altoona, which is where I spent the first 2 years at. I did not mention that yet, but I spent the first 2 years at Penn State Altoona. And student leadership training was a one-day conference that was held for anyone who was an active officer in a club. This was a really great opportunity to learn a little bit more about how to manage and run clubs, and it also brought in some new insights on how to work with your peers and students. Internships. So the main internship I have listed up here that I completed was Williamsburg FFA Forestry CDE coach. This is something that I did my freshman year, so going back a few years, but I was able to work with Williamsburg FFA and their forestry team, being that I was a previous state winner of the forestry CDE. I was able to bring my knowledge with them, and it was a blast working with students and being able to share my knowledge and be the coach that I've always wanted to be and try and help them achieve their goals and dreams within the forestry CDE in FFA. Excuse me. Pennscape tour guide was something that I unfortunately was unable to complete due to COVID. I was going to do this in the summer of 2020, and I was really excited to do this. I was going to either be a cave tour guide at Pennscape or the wildlife tour guide. They hadn't quite assigned what I was going to do. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to complete that internship. That is something that I could potentially look at in the summer, although I'm not sure what my schedule looks like. But it's something that I was really interested in. I love animals, I love nature, and I was very disappointed that I wasn't able to complete that internship. Now we'll talk about multicultural awareness, which is another thing similar to food security that I had somewhat of knowledge on coming into college, and the last year mainly has really opened my eyes to the total scope of multicultural awareness. It's something that we hear a lot in the media and we think about, but it's a lot more diverse than what we think. Some of the programs or activities that I did, the NAAE conference was again an awesome way to meet different educators from across the country and learn that there are a bunch of different cultures even within the United States. It's not just outside of the United States. And yet again, another experience that got cut short or didn't even happen because of COVID. I was enrolled in a course to go to Ecuador the spring of my sophomore year to do a week-long study abroad program. We were all set to fly on March 17th, I believe. And as we all know, COVID hit and I got the call saying, hey, you can't go. And I was furious, but then the day that we were supposed to get on the plane was when the airports all shut down. So it's probably a good thing that I didn't get on the plane and I didn't get stuck in Ecuador. Although maybe that would have been cool, who knows? That was another program that I really was looking forward to that unfortunately didn't get to happen. However, my senior year of high school, which is going back a ways and it's not part of my college experience, I was able to spend a week in Costa Rica through the same tour company. So that is a very similar experience that I was able to complete and something that I think about. Maybe that's what Ecuador would have been. But again, I'm very disappointed that I wasn't able to fully complete that experience. So now the last thing I want to talk about is my student teaching placement and what I will be doing in the spring. So I'll be student teaching at Belmont Area High School, which is right down the road from here. I get to stay in the State College area while all my cohort members get to disperse throughout the state. Belmont is an amazing high school, and their ag program is getting better each and every day, in my opinion. The overview of the program, there's roughly 100 students with 60 members. There's a variety of classes taught, which I'll get into as well. They compete in land and livestock teaching CDEs and LDEs to the FFA chapter, and they have a very large AgMech shop. They have a welding booth as well. They have the AgMech shop with all of their saws, tables to work on, as well as the welding booths. They have raised beds outside, and they have Z boards, which are basically giant iPads with a little bit more technology incorporated in that students are able to use to do things like dissections, practice welds, and work on other things on those Z boards. But there are two of them. They're really large. They're about, I would say, 3 foot by 2 foot maybe. And I believe there's two of them in the classroom. They are a really awesome tool that I'll be able to implement in the spring. So here we can see, this is a chapter 3 through 9 evaluation, and one of the pictures right there is another new facility that they have, or facility, it's aeroponics. It's the aeroponics system that they just got. It's brand new, and I'm hoping to break it in, not break it, but just break it in. So, that's some of the strengths. They have outstanding facilities, and their member involvement is getting better and better. I hope to build on that member involvement, and some areas for improvement would be SAE. Not every student necessarily has an SAE project, and I'm hoping that I can expand upon this and get every student to have an SAE project. So, this is my schedule of what I will be teaching in the spring. I have 4 different courses that I'll be teaching, and there are 2 sections of pre-vet and 2 sections of general ag. So I'll be teaching 6 different periods, but 4 courses overall. I'll be teaching, the main course that I'll be focusing on is landscape and horticulture. Those are the units that I will be going over throughout my time at Belmont. Pre-vet, I'll be diving into some animal nutrition and animal reproduction, which is something that I learned a lot about in Animal Science 201 and something that I'm looking forward to going over with those students. Agriculture, again, my food security unit, something that I'm also looking forward to. I'm really excited to share what I've learned in Intake 297, as well as an FFA SAE unit. I'm really excited to expand upon FFA even more and spend 3 weeks going into some more in-depth topics on how FFA and SAE can impact those students. And lastly is AgMech. Definitely not my strong suit, but I'm excited to dive in to some small gas engines, not only to teach the students and get better myself, but to simply learn more about small gas engines in case I ever need to know, how to fix a small gas engine. Also, biofuels is another awesome topic that I don't know a lot about, but I'm interested in learning more and sharing that knowledge. Lastly, how will I grow into the ideal ag educator? And this is a huge one for me. I need to recognize my strengths first and foremost, which I think I do relatively well. I am relatable, I can be enthusiastic, I like to talk, and I feel that I am able to work with my students and be that teacher that anyone can talk to and talk to. I think I can adapt very well. If something goes wrong, that's okay. We'll fix it. We'll get through it. We'll figure it out. I don't necessarily need to go by the book, by the plan. However, I also need to recognize my weaknesses, and that's even bigger than recognizing my strengths. I have a lot of weaknesses, but I am motivated to fix those weaknesses. I think after coming back from the NAE convention, I learned a lot more about myself and a lot more about what I need to do to become this master educator. And while I don't have it all figured out now, I'm super excited to continue to grow between now and the start of my internship and through my internship. Each and every day, I'll be taking a look back and doing personal reflection, writing in a journal, and trying to come up with new ways that I can improve as a teacher. Two of the big things I need to do are plan ahead and stay focused. I procrastinate, it's a thing I do, and I'm gonna nip it in the bud. I'm gonna stop procrastinating, I'm gonna plan ahead, and I'm gonna make sure that my units and lesson plans will be completed at least 2 weeks ahead of time in the spring. So that way, if anything goes wrong, I can share it with Miss Mike Foreman, who is my cooperating teacher at Bellefonte. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but Miss Mike Foreman is my cooperating teacher. She is amazing. I'm going to be excited to work with her. I relate to her a lot on many levels. She is the type of teacher that I would look up to if I was a student in the program. But I'm willing to work with her. I will do whatever she needs me to do and take all the advice she can give me to try and become a better ag teacher. That is my presentation. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's here. I want to thank all of my cohort members who were able to be my rock and foundation this semester. Thank you to all of my DTS family that showed up today for supporting me. And thank you to all the professors who have dealt with me throughout this past couple of years and have put up with everything that I put them through. So I just want to thank everyone, and I hope that you all enjoyed, and we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Brody. Jess will be helping to translate the questions as they come in on the chat in Facebook and on Zoom. Brody, I'll start with maybe asking you to clarify. We have several folks in the audience who maybe don't have as intimate an understanding of education as some of us do. So I would love if you help maybe for them break down sort of the timeline and the importance of planning for instruction. So walk me through, if I didn't know anything about education, what does it take to pull off a random lesson from 8 to 9:30 on a Friday afternoon in animal science? What is the planning, what are the steps and levels of planning and timeline to make that happen prior to a random class session?
So the question was, what does it take planning wise to become that master educator? How do you plan for that random lesson throughout the week? And what does it take to make sure that you plan well enough ahead of time to make sure that lesson goes smoothly? So I would say there are multiple different ways that planning is impactful and important. I think it starts by knowing your school and knowing your audience, knowing your community, knowing where you are and planning ahead in the grand scheme of things, looking at the scope and sequence of your total program. Then it's important to dive into the more smaller things. You start from the top and you work your way down. I think that unit planning is important to plan out the entire course, plan multiple units, and go into further planning out these lessons, knowing exactly what you're going to teach and when you're going to teach it, and knowing your unit goals and how you're going to accomplish those unit goals are crucial to becoming a master educator. Because if you don't know what your goals are, you will be unable to properly educate those students. If you're simply standing up there lecturing information with no goal or with no end to the road, you won't be able to know where you're going. You'll just be driving. So it's super important to know your goals, plan ahead, and make sure that you are able to properly present that information.
Dylan says, great job, Brody. What is one thing that you would change about your experience in the ag ed program?
That's a good one. Internships was something, and again, COVID happened and can't change that. You know, that was going into my junior year, so that would be coming into State College, University Park. Like I said, I spent my first 2 years at Penn State Altoona. And on top of that, talking about Altoona, I also wish that I had connected more with my ag ed cohort and family up here while I was at Altoona. And that's something that I shared. I just recently went back to Altoona to talk to the Ag 150 students there. I got invited back with some of my fellow classmates who came from Altoona I wish that I would have got more involved up here and been more connected with the professors and gotten a bit more of a game plan. It kind of felt like two different colleges for me. It felt like Altoona was just a community college, gen ed, small campus, and I just didn't have the scope and grand scheme of what I was going through. So I wish that I had been more connected through my first 2 years at Penn State. And I also wish that I had done more internship opportunities, despite my efforts to try and do some of those during the spring of COVID.
Thank you. Go ahead, Carson.
Brody, in a couple of weeks, you're going to be student teaching. And chances are you're going to get into the classroom and there's going to be a mini version of you sitting there. What kinds of things would you do to specially accommodate that student to ensure their academic and career-ready success?
Well, I think I've got the inside scoop on what problems could arise with that student, and I know sort of what I need to do to better myself. And so knowing that student who's like me, I'll be able to relate to them and say, hey, I know what you're going through. I know you may have problems with mental health or with procrastination or with just staying focused on the task at hand and looking at the bigger picture. And I would be able to tell them, now that I've had all these experiences and now that I've sort of put it all together and I'm prepared, I'm ready to share my experience and say, hey, look, I've been here, I've done this. I know it's cliche, but trust me. You don't want to do the things like procrastination that I've done. So I would just try and relate to that student as much as possible.
Do you mind me asking a quick follow-up and giving me an example of maybe one of those techniques that you've employed this semester to help yourself not procrastinate?
So one way that I kind of help stay focused and think about the bigger picture and also relate to procrastination would be writing in my journal daily. And I struggle with that too. Sometimes I'll miss a day and I'll have to go back and catch up. But I think personal reflection and looking back at those experiences and saying, hey, you procrastinated on this last assignment, you don't want to do that again. Let's try and be at least a little bit better. So I would go back and tell them, like, personal reflection, look at what you've done, look what's worked and what hasn't worked. And if it hasn't worked, we got to do something about that. We got to change it.
Thank you.
And actually that connects into my question. So on November 2nd, 2021, you turned in a time management plan reflection, and you tracked your time for 2 whole weeks, and then you reflected on it. So you're talking about journaling and reflecting on what you did, and what is it that you're doing to be proactive now that you've been through this experience to make sure that you're on track? So after those 2 weeks, you are able to reflect and say, yeah, I met most of my goals. Did you implement, I guess what my real question is, did you implement any strategies to be proactive to stay on track and accomplish your tasks?
So I started to, I do have a journal that, again, I would use periodically and try to keep on the daily, and that was more for personal reflection of my life and what's going on. But I also did get a planner. I'm a type of person who likes the hard copies. I'm honestly, surprisingly not that tech savvy, to be honest. I struggle a lot sometimes with Word and Excel, trying to get some of the finite details of that. So I like physical copies, and I went and got a 2021-2022 Penn State student planner. I had a nice little sticker sheet in the front, really great for me, put through those stickers all around. And I did that for about 2 weeks, fell off, got back on it, fell off, and now I'm using it again, and I need to stick with it, and I think I'm going to, because when I do use it, it helps me, and then if I go home for a weekend, don't plan, forget about it, I realize after the week of not using it, oh crap, I need to use this because when I was using it, it was really working for me. So making sure that I stick with that and stay on that routine, using that physical planner that I can keep on me at all times.
Thanks.
So previously, Mrs. Foreman said that her 9th period ag class is watching and said good luck. And then now they would like to know what you are most looking forward to when you come to student teaching.
So the question was, what am I most looking forward to student teaching? I just realized that I have not been repeating this question, so I apologize for that. I'm most looking forward to meeting the students and working with the students. That's why I want to be a teacher. I want to make those impacts with the students, and I'm excited to share my knowledge and grow with the students at Belmont Area High School. So for all you who are watching, I'm really excited and I'm looking forward to it.
what do you do, or how would you handle if you have a move up day, like we do in our area for 8th graders coming down? And you are presenting your program to them. And one of the kids gets super excited about it, even though they have never been near an ag class. They're super excited, they want to try out what you're offering to them. And they go home, they talk to the parents are like, no way. You know, I have no knowledge of agriculture, you know, you can't do this. So what do you do to show the parent, you know, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is what we have to offer, don't be afraid, blah, blah, blah. How would you handle that?
Yes, Mom, great question. It sounds familiar. So, what would I do in that situation? In that situation, it would be important to potentially talk, and I think I would go talk to the parent and let them know that, hey, this program is more diverse and encapsulates more than you think. It's not just, you know, there's the old saying, it's not just about cows, plows, and sows. It's a corny saying that many people have heard before, but it's true. And I would try and explain to that parent that the ag program may be focused in agriculture. We may be talking about dairy cattle reproduction. We may be talking about getting our hands dirty in the soil out in the woods, doing forestry competitions and soil competitions. There's all that, but it's also involved with the leadership side of things. So I think I would try and explain to that parent that there's more to it than just that. There's the leadership side of things. There's the SAE side where a student gets to take their own project and put it in their own hands and do their own learning. So I would just try and show the parent the 3-circle model and not just focus on the fact that, yeah, we talk about cows, we talk about forestry. It's more of the total program, and I will talk about the 3-circle model and how that relates.
Mr. Coolidge, I have a question. I have a scenario that I'm going to present to you. I am an administrator at a school. In fact, I have a son who's upcoming freshman. We're going to make a tough decision here about, depending on who we hire as our next ag teacher, about whether or not we close this program or continue to offer agricultural education, and whether or not my son will be in your program. I need you to tell me why, if we need an ag education program, I should hire you.
So the question was, if the administration, so I was talking with the administration, and they wanted to know if we were to keep the program, why should they hire me? I would say that once I'm in the classroom and I'm with those students and I'm around those students, it's so easy for me to flip that switch and go all out with learning and FFA. It's somewhat hard for me sometimes when I'm here on campus and not around the students and not in the program to sort of get that motivation and that spark and that energy. But when I'm in that setting and when it's my program and when they're my students and when I'm the person who's supposed to be guiding them and leading them, I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to give it 100% effort. FFA is something that I was involved in all 4 years of high school. I was an officer. I was the chapter president. I served 1 year as a Pennsylvania FFA state officer. And for those 5 years, I was ride or die FFA. That's really all I cared about. That's what I lived for. And that was my passion. And while that sort of fell off as I wasn't doing as many FFA activities, every time I go back to an FFA conference or an event, I'm always reminded of that passion. And I'm confident, and what I would say to this administrator would be, I'm confident that once I get into this program, you will see an amazing turnaround in no time, and I will give my 100% effort to better this program. Because at that point, it would be my program. It wouldn't just be a stepping stone. It wouldn't just be, a job. It would be my program, and I would love that program with all my heart and devote all my energy to giving those students the best possible experience that they can, because I know that my experience in high school was absolutely incredible, and I feel like every student should at least have the opportunity to go through that.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Bremer says, great presentation, Brody. As a teacher, how will you keep your administration involved?
So sort of a related question. The question was, how do you keep your administration involved, which relates to the previous question. I think fostering that relationship with your administration early is going to be critical to having a key program. inviting your administration to your advisory committee meetings, inviting your administration to an FFA meeting, an FFA events, have them come out to a CDE competition, show them what Ag Ed is all about, and as well as showing them what it's all about, working with them and saying, how can I help you? I want them to help me, obviously, with different things such as grants and the ability to go to different events and travel around the state and maybe the country. But then I would also ask them, what can I do for you? How can I better serve the school? How can I better serve the administration? And I think fostering that relationship and being able to work together and work for one another would be an amazing way to foster that relationship with administration.
What's got you excited about the next 5 years?
The students, getting in with the students, I've said it before, that's something, and admittedly going back to my slide about my weaknesses, when I'm not around the students or when I don't want to say have ownership, but the program, and these are my students going through the program, I do sort of have a certain ownership to them. And so it will be much easier for me to get involved. So for the next 5 years, I'm excited to build my program from the ground up. I often compare it to being like a sports coach. And the way I kind of see it and the way I would approach it, I use sports metaphors a lot, is doing like a rebuild, a sports rebuild. A team that, you know, is on the brink of being sold or disbanded, being kicked out of the league. I want to come in there. I want to rebuild that program. I want to put out some MVPs. I want to put out state officers. I want to churn out CDE winning, state winning teams, because that's the experience that I had with my amazing teacher, Mrs. Burnson. I haven't mentioned her yet, but she has been one of the most amazing people in my life, and she's my role model. She's who I want to live up to, and she was able to give it her all for me and present me with all these awesome opportunities. So I'm looking forward for the rebuild and to get into an ag program, turn it around, and start producing some amazing leaders in the agricultural field.
What are some plans that you have?
Daily son.
You have for professional development. How do you know, you're gonna be out of college soon, hopefully, and you know, you get a job. How are you gonna stay up? What are your plans in your education?
Yeah, I think, again, professional development is important. One of the professional development events that we did here was the FAS or symposium that was at NAAE, and that was related to the inquiry-based instruction, which we had an amazing ag educator, Ms. Grundy from Utah, come in and present this new way of learning and teaching inquiry-based learning. And former students here who are newly hires within the last couple of 3-4 years were able to come back and do that. So coming back in to some new teacher programs and also looking out for new opportunities, whether that be getting more information and knowledge on AgNet units. That would be something that I would be looking forward to. Getting more knowledge on course topics, more knowledge on how to work with diverse learners. Anything that I can do throughout my time as an educator to grow will be important to bettering myself as an educator, to ultimately give a better education to those students.
I think we've reached time. Brody, or audience, will you help me in thanking Brody one last time for his presentation? I'll conclude the public portion of this presentation. We ask that you retire to 2:14 for refreshments if you'd like. Our last presentation this afternoon will be Ms. Jenna Kibbe at 3:30. We thank you for your time and thank you for supporting Brody.
I had one loaded.
There should be a sign-up sheet out in the hallway.
All right. Thank you.
Maybe, I don't see it. Your tie, no.
You didn't mean it.
Your tie looks nice. I like the puppies with the hat.
You remember what happened yesterday?
Is it up there?